The immigrant experience is as varied as the person who is sharing it. Cipota Under the Moon is the new collection from Claudia Castro Luna, former Washington State Poet Laureate. The series of poems is an ode to the Salvadorian immigrant experience in the United States. And Claudia joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us, for sharing this book with us. This is your fourth book. What inspired the collection, and what does the word Cipota mean?
Good question. Yes, it's my fourth book and the first book in which I turn really inward and explore and talk about my family's experience of leaving El Salvador during the Civil War. And it's also an effort at documenting the Salvadorian immigrant experience in the U.S., of which we don't know much, right? So this is a way of getting the story out there. Cipota is a very Salvadoran word that means girl. So it is, the reason why I have it in the title is because anyone who's Salvadoran who sees that will know immediately that is a cue that this book is about El Salvador and Central America in general.
You mentioned your family's immigrant story. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Yes, my family, my mom, my dad, my sister and myself left El Salvador in January 17th, 1981, I know that date exactly, which is at the very beginning of the Civil War, which lasted 12 years. Peace treaties were signed in 92. And we left with 4 small suitcases and a box of books and arrived in Florida, in West Palm Beach, Florida, as a matter of fact, where an aunt, a sister of my mother, resides to this day. And she helped us file the paperwork for us to come and immigrate to the U.S.
This book, it centers around your personal story. Can you share some of the central themes in the poems that we find here?
Yes, so the opening of the book is really an ode to childhood. There are many poems written about my sister and myself. My sister's younger than me, and it tells of our story as kids caught up in this whirlwind of state violence and being, you know, just disoriented and sensing from the adults that something was terribly wrong and witnessing ourselves the scariness of the war, the fights, armed fights on the street, etc. And then it moves into speaking about just immigration in general and urban spaces, which is a favorite topic of mine. And Salvadorans weave in and out of these experiences. Eventually the book comes out to speak about a return, the opportunity to return to the home country, which many of us, regardless of where we come from, have that experience of returning and rediscovering and seeing how things have unfolded in one's absence. So so
which
that's
is also
kind of
another kind of, it can be traumatizing as well and emotionally moving. Speaking of emotion, I feel like poetry is one of the only forms of writing that can truly sometimes get to that gut emotion. I know that there is a lot of value of writing and studying poetry. I personally did, so I'm a big fan. But what would you say to folks about studying poetry, and how has it affected your life personally?
Well, poetry has transformed my life, absolutely. Becoming a writer, and I'm a prose writer, but I am absolutely grounded in poetry, and it transformed my life once I took up the pen and entered that journey. I haven't looked back, and my life is very different as a result. But I think poetry is for everyone, and I think everyone can write poems precisely because of what you said, because the impetus for a poem is always a deep feeling, and we all experience and are able have deep emotions, which is really the kernel of every poem, plus storytelling, and we all have stories to tell. So those two things combined really are at the heart of every single poem, I would say, that has ever been written. And so it is relevant to all of us because that's what life is, isn't it?
It's the human condition.
Exactly,
I know sometimes when I write poetry, which no one will ever read, there are lines that I remember that stick out to me. Are there any lines that stick out to you that are strongest, either from the book or any of the books you've written?
Yes, there's a sense of poems, and yes, sometimes lines, but more this book in particular, just thinking and honoring my sister and the journey that we undertook as children. You know, now with the images of Ukraine that we are witnessing, and the children in those photographs, I can't help but relate that to my own experience and my sister, and how really kids are brave, you know, and yet, and also full of light. So this book, although it has really heavy themes of war and immigration and the difficulty of returning, which can be traumatic, it's also, in my mind, a book about light and about holding the fierceness of being alive and loving life despite, you know, what it brings to us, right? So,
because even in the darkness, the moon can be so bright.
Absolutely, yeah, I love the cover.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing this with us. And Claudia will be sharing from her new book next Thursday evening, May 19th, at the Seattle Public Library, in person as well via live stream. We'll have more information on our website.